Hello and welcome to my brief presentation on the OSI model. This is part 1 of the series and we won't be going into too much depth on this particular video. Part 2, hopefully we can talk a little bit more about encapsulation and go into a little bit more detail, but this is just meant to be a nice brief overview. Let's get started. The application layer, also known as layer 7. Here you can expect to see FTP, DNS, HTTP, DHCP, Telnet, and many more protocols. Essentially, the application layer is the layer at which you interface with your computer. So anytime you're checking your email, or browsing the internet, or playing a game, or even watching YouTube, you will be working at the application layer. Below that we have the presentation layer, or layer 6. Here you'll find things like ASCII, GIF, MPEG. GIF being images. Anytime you visit a website and you see an image, that may well be a GIF image. MPEG being movies. Basically what the presentation layer does is it takes data which is in one format and presents that information in a nice human readable format. The session layer, layer 5. Essentially this controls sessions between applications. So if you're sat on a local host working on an application that wants to talk to a user on a remote host or an application on a remote host, the session is controlled at layer 5. Layer 5 is responsible for bringing up sessions and also tearing them down as well. This is its only role, and you will spend next to no time in this layer when troubleshooting problems. Layer 4, which is the transport layer. Here you'll find TCP, UDP, and maybe even SPX if you're old school 80s novel wizards. You don't really see SPX around too much anymore. It's pretty much a legacy protocol now, but certainly TCP and UDP are very relevant, and you might want to, if you don't know anything about TCP and UDP, maybe you should look around the internet, maybe look at Wikipedia or TCP/IP guide or various different websites and research this a little bit more, because you will need to know that for your studies. We're not going to go into that in any detail in this particular presentation as it's not too relevant. Layer 3, the network layer. Here we can expect to find IP, so IPv4, IPv6, IPX, IPsec. Routers also live and work in the network layer, so anything to do with IP is essentially layer 3. Layer 2, or the data link layer. Here we can find Ethernet, ATM, frame relay, so 2WAN technologies there. Switches also work at layer 2 as well. So here you can expect to see MAC addresses rather than IP addresses, which we would see at layer 3. And finally, in the physical layer, down at the bottom there, this is essentially all ones and zeros. So electrical pulses through one host that connects to another host via Cat5 cable. That data is sent using binary, essentially. And so Cat5, fiber, radio signals, whatever it may be, whatever the medium may be, it's pretty much all ones and zeros, and that's what you'd expect to see at the physical layer. Also, anything you can touch with your hands and physically plug in would be considered the physical layer, as such Cat5 cabling, for instance. Hubs and repeaters also live at this layer, at layer 1, or the physical layer. So at layer 1 we can expect to see hubs. Layer 2 we'll see switches and MAC addresses. Layer 3 we will see routers and IP addresses. Okay, let's talk about how data is formatted at each of these layers. So you've got the top 3 layers there, which I have grouped together: application, presentation and session layers. When we refer to data, at these particular layers, data is referred to as data. When this data moves down to the transport layer, this is broken up into segments. So we refer to data at the transport layer as segments, so TCP, UDP, that would be referred to as segments. When these segments are encapsulated and moved into the network layer, so layer 3, we would then refer to these segments no longer segments but as packets or datagrams. Again, when these packets move into layer 2, it is encapsulated and referred to as frames. And then finally, when the frames are then sent out through the physical layer along the cables, the data is then referred to as binary or ones and zeros, however you want to put that basically. So the main point there is, as soon as the data hits the transport layer, layer 4, this is when the data is segmented. After that, packets and then frames, and then down the wire as ones and zeros. These are good things to remember. Okay, so that was a nice little brief introduction to the OSI model. I really do hope it was helpful for you. I tried to keep it simple. Didn't want to get too bogged down in terms of the actual encapsulation process. I'm going to save that for a later date. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please comment on the video or like the video, whatever it is you want to do. Drop me a personal message. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you do have. Once I get a bit of free time, I'll certainly reply to all of you. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions. I'm here to help, and also maybe I can learn a little bit of something from you as well. So I'd like to thank you very much for viewing. Good night.